And in that period of the 30s to the relationship with Larry initially and so on, he made a fun, he came back to your Romeo, didn't he, when he said in his book about how John is always saying terrible things about me, how terribly he thought I was as Romeo, and that was 45 years ago.
Yes,
Why does he still go on about that?
He always did. He was always, I suppose, jealous of my verse speaking being admired, because he thought he spoke it just as well as I did, and in a way he did. But it's funny, that did fester for many years. But I think he was so ambitious, and I didn't realize it. I do remember him once coming round during a matinee and saying, they haven't put my boards outside the theatre. We had single boards in those days. And he was furious and rang up the box office or something and made a fuss. Because he was very ambitious, and of course I was a star before he was. At that time he'd appeared in 3 or 4 plays, one of them in this theatre, The Rats of Norway, was done here, I think. And he played in Beau Geste, Circle of Chalk, 2 other plays, all of which were failures, but he had wonderful notices in all of them. So it really advanced his career, although but he was burning with ambition. And of course, when he came back after the war with Ralph, and they had that marvelous season at the New, I was playing at the Haymarket, rather tired and with a rather retired company. And we felt we were very much also Ram. And they had these great triumphs, and I would love to have been in their company, you know, even if I'd been only second in it.
But you became a star before Larry, Olivier, but then he spotted the potential of movies years ahead of you. Really.
Yes, but he wasn't very successful in movies, you know. I mean, he was thrown out by Garbo. He did do Rebecca very well, but it wasn't until Henry V, which he forced himself on the film world in Henry V and brought it off 100%. And that's when he became a great world figure and world star, and I couldn't compete with that. And I tried to get into the Henry V by wanting to play the chorus, but I hadn't the courage to ask him for it. And he gave it to Leslie Banks. I think he knew that he wasn't going to have me in the company. But he did have me in Richard III, and we got on very well in that.
Did you?
Except that when we went to... he was very beguiling, because it was only a short part, Clarence, and I enjoyed playing it very much. But I remember Vivien saying at when we went to see the Rushes, you put him in the dark in the middle of his big speech. Larry rang me up a few weeks later and said, you know, we're showing it on television in America, and it's a great failure because it's so many long shots, and they look so tiny. And they're very worried about how it's going to go on the general distribution. And I'm afraid they've got to cut out your Clarence speech. I'm very sorry, cocky, and all that. Very sweet. But I wasn't very pleased. Until years afterwards, when I was in New York, I happened to pass the marquee of the Carnegie Theatre or somewhere where they were showing old films. And there was a huge thing on the outside of the theatre, John Gielgud, Laurence Olivier, Richard III, and I thought Larry wouldn't have been very pleased with that. So it was a kind of post-mortem triumph for me in that respect.
Absolutely, that was game, set, and match at a later date. Yeah.
But I was very fond of him, and I was rather ashamed I didn't go and see him in the last years, because everybody said he was so ill, and I thought, well, it's awful to go in and have my faculties and see him broken up. And I thought that would upset him more than pleasing him, you know. We were never very intimate, and then I became an enormous friend of Vivien's, so that when all the crack-up happened, it was a difficult situation between us. I used to stay down at Notley quite often. And I think he wasn't very pleased with my tremendous friendship with her.
And when you directed the 2 of them later on,
yes,
it was just at the time when the marriage was breaking up, wasn't it?
Yes, and I think that, and I was very much suspicious that he was directing Vivien behind my back, you know, that I tell her something in the morning and he'd tell her something in the evening, and she was torn between the 2 and didn't know what to do. Because she was very obedient, she adored him, but she also liked me very much, and was in a quandary as to who she must be loyal to.
And in fact, you felt that he was wrong in what he said about her in his autobiography.
I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't read it because I heard it was very cruel about her. But he did. But he once told me very touchingly in New York, one of the few times I ever had an intimate conversation with him, that she had given him the best moments of his life and also some of the worst, which I well believe, because I was with her once or twice in the last part when she came on a holiday with me, just in America, and she had one of her breakdowns. She was filming Ship of Fools, And that was a very terrifying experience to see her when she went out of her mind. And she knew it, which was made it worse somehow.
She was incredibly beautiful in those years.
And even more so at the end, I thought, when she was saying she couldn't be photographed at 9 o'clock in the morning. She was very frightened of getting old. But actually, with her bone structure, she looked more beautiful, I think. But when she had her breakdown, she used to suddenly, her face would swell and her handwriting would go funny. And it was terrible to see her sort of disintegrating before your eyes.
I suppose the image everybody will retain of her has gone with the wind, I suppose, isn't it?
And that was strange, of course, because their difficulties arose, I think, from the, again, like Larry and me, she couldn't make up her mind whether she was spoiling his career in the theatre or he was wondering whether she was more successful than he was in the movies. So there was this kind of difficulty between them that urged on all the complications.